Hey all, here OS Reviews. Earlier this year we checked out the RisoPhy Air 75, which was one of my favorite low-profile wireless mechanical keyboards that has just a very clean and modern, minimalistic design. However, this also represents a more flagship-grade product, and in general I would say low-profile, ultra-slim mechanical keyboards, you just have fewer options to pick between, especially in the lower-cost budget segment. But today I'm really excited to take a look at what might be one of the best values I've ever seen, which is a ultra cheap, low profile wireless mechanical keyboard that only sells for $30. This is the RisoPhy PC361A, which is a 60% wireless keyboard supporting both Bluetooth and 2.4G wireless, or you can use it in the wired mode via a USB Type-C cable. And it's crazy how they were able to get the cost down so much, but also speaks to how mechanical keyboards, especially in recent years, have just exploded in terms of popularity, and as a result, the cost has just started to really fall and become more accessible. RisoPhy even has a cheaper model that's only $25, but is still a low-profile mechanical keyboard using red switches. The only difference though is that this model is not a wireless model. So that could be an even cheaper option if you want to just get started with your first low-profile keyboard, but just for $5 more, personally I find this one to be maybe an even better deal because it adds, again, Bluetooth, a built-in battery, and the 2.4G option. They claim that everything here is customizable in terms of the RGB lighting with a companion app, which is again crazy to see at this price. 3000 milliamp hour capacity battery, which is going to be sufficient for about 12 hours of usage, and the keycaps you can still pop out and replace if needed. However, the switches are mounted into the board. This model in particular is a blue switch option. So anyways, packaging here is ultra simple, but that's probably how they were able to cut down on some of that cost. So inside here we have, of course, just the keyboard itself, which we'll be taking a closer look at in a moment, along with a included USB Type-C cable for charging, and if you want to use it as a wired keyboard. Despite the low price, it's a pretty high quality cable, which is braided and feels nice in terms of texture, and there's just a very quick user guide. Perhaps the thing that stands out the most is just how small this entire box and presentation is. I mean, the entire thing is less than 2 smartphones in terms of width. You would be hard-pressed to think that this thing is only $30 just by looking at it. It even has the aluminum chamfered metal edge in terms of the build, which just makes it feel and look a little bit more expensive. In fact, it seems like something that almost Apple would make, but of course all the tactility of a true mechanical keyboard, albeit the switches, of course, are still going to be more shallow compared to a full-sized keyboard. Now, on the back here, we have just a Type-C port there, power on and off for the wireless modes, and then on the very base, this part is still made out of a polycarbonate plastic. We do have additional feet that you can prop up at a more elevated angle for typing, and more importantly, the nano receiver for the 2.4G mode if you don't want to use Bluetooth. Again, overall build here I think is incredibly good considering the ultra low pricing. It is very impressive, I have to say. Otherwise, again, you can see the switches here, which are again definitely using the blue switch type. Here are some everyday objects for size comparison, including a Sharpie pen, which you can tell that it's actually not that much thicker than that. Also something like a more typical full-size switch you can tell will be significantly thicker. What's also impressive here is they haven't really skimped in terms of the keycaps either. Although they look simple, there is a slight divot to them, so it slightly goes inwards towards the middle and the outer edges are a little bit more raised. So when you are typing, your fingers kind of naturally rest on them like droplets, and it just makes the entire thing feel very satisfying. So here's a quick typing test in terms of the sound as we click away. And the entire thing is still super satisfying in terms of the clackiness. All the keys and switches feel very consistent. Even the spacebar feels well optimized in terms of not being too loose, although it may not be the best choice if you are in a public space where you have to be more quiet, like a library, or if you are in a dorm environment that's shared. But in other spaces where you are alone, I personally prefer these blue switches since they will give you that feedback while you're doing the action. So it just makes you actually type a little bit faster in my experience after you get used to it, and the benefit benefits of mechanical switches still persist in that the switch is doing part of the work for you. So although it's a little bit more shallow, you don't have to press all the way down still, just a little bit of pressure, and the entire key will then fall down and allows you to, again, exert less pressure as you're typing along. And we do have the ability to connect up to 3 Bluetooth devices and switch between 3 sources at once. And really, despite being only 60% and not having a dedicated numpad, all the keys here still feel very comfortable in terms of their size. It is even smaller than the already compact Newfie Air 75, as you can see there, because this is a 75% keyboard versus the 60%. Because it is using Bluetooth 5.0, there's very little latency when it comes to controlling things, and we can in fact type things along, again, without much ghosting or having things be too slow as you are rapidly typing along. There's no real missed keystrokes. What's also really impressive here is all the keycaps fully shine through, so there's no issues here in terms of seeing things in the dark, something that even more expensive keyboards might struggle with depending on the keycap type. So that's great to find. And in terms of the controls for lighting, you can again tap on function and the up and down arrow keys to change things like the brightness level. You can turn it completely off or shine everything higher. This is the maximum brightness, which in darker spaces it still is pretty obvious and easy to see, but again, if you are in a really brightly lit space, it's not going to be the brightest in the world, but still getting these crazy, beautiful 50 million colors is quite nice and attractive looking, especially on such a low-cost keyboard. Doing a really good job, I have to say. Now I can also tap on the function left and right keys to change the transition speeds to make it faster, as you can see there, rippling down, or also make it slower until it will eventually freeze on a single frame. You can also tap on the function and insert key there to go into some of the other preset modes, including this randomized effect, which is probably better for a conversation starter or kind of a mood light rather than something super practical, since not all the colors will be lit at once. Here's one which is kind of a ripple pattern, but what's really interesting is it looks like the center is coming from the O instead of necessarily from the real middle of the keyboard. Another one which is more of a transition effect that will go into this dot and then slowly ripple out again from the sides. So some of these do seem a little bit more similar, but nonetheless you do have a lot of this granularity that you can pick between per your liking, striping left and right to yet another kind of crazy gradient one, which is super beautiful to look at, I have to say. So pretty much all of these effects I do really like. Here's a breathing mode, and one more here which is a reactive mode, which will shine for just a split second before the lights will turn off, as you can see there, although the speed of which the lights are fading around is going to be relatively fast. Every single time that you're tapping, it will change into a completely different color, as you see there. One more here which ripples outwards depending on when you are pressing down, which can also look pretty cool as you're interacting with it. One more here which is another rainbow effect, but now striping to the right instead of moving up or down. And then another one here which is reactive, which is pretty cool if you are typing back and forth, as you can see there. Going once again into a more standard uniform color that's kind of spinning in a circular-like icon. And then once again into this V-shaped sine wave pattern. Now, by the way, all of these modes you can further tap on function and delete to change into singular colors if you prefer. So you can go and tweak this to your liking, red, green, blue, so on and so forth, white, back into the multicolored mode. So all of this gives us just a ton of different granularity to pick with, and as a whole, very good in terms of the customization options, looking truly beautiful, I have to say, especially here in darker environments. So that is more or less it as far as our hands-on review of this, again, 60% ultra low cost, only $30 wireless low profile mechanical keyboard. If you want something even thinner and lighter to take with you, this can be a really good choice to consider. You can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.